in terms of votes, just a moment, in terms of multiple and underage voting, penalty attracts a fine of 100,000 naira or 12 months in prison. Ballot box snatching and destruction, just 24 months in prison. And vote buying and bribery, which you talked about earlier on, as very fundamental, which we have not been able to address. Now, those courts face a fine of 500,000 naira or up to 12 months imprisonment. And this is what, as everyone says, I mean, these are punishments that you could just put your hand at the back of your pocket and then pay off. How did we arrive at such a ridiculous, fine?
Ridiculous, but we have to put things in context. The Electoral Act of 2022 was not a revolutionary act. We did not reinvent the wheel. And the reason why it's quite right when he says that INEC does not make law. It can only offer suggestions. Similarly, civil societies can only offer suggestions when it comes to public hearings and they submit memoranda. Now, every law must be taken into the environment, the context in which you find it in. Don't forget that we've always had electoral acts. We had the 2000 Act, the 2022 Act, the 2021 Act that was significant portions were nullified by the courts. So we had to have the 2002 Act. Prior to that, we had the decrees, 1999, 1998, 99. We had decrees, which similar to an act, which for each set of elections. All these are carryovers. All these, most of these offences and most of the punishments are carryovers from the earlier acts. And one significant thing the 2022 Act did was to up the ante in terms of the amount of money to be paid as fines. And in some cases, they even removed the option of fines. Say you pay both a fine and go to prison. There are several clauses or several sections of that act that say so. So if you destroy ballot papers, for example, there's an offense, but compare it to what you have in the criminal code or in the criminal law of some of the states of the federation, you'll find out that there are similar punishments. The idea sometimes is that, well, if it happens on election day, it should be more significant, there should be higher punishments. But these are the kind of punishments you find in all your penal legislations. But don't lose the trend that sometimes it is not so much the fine you pay, that can be a deterrence or a lack of it, but also the stigma of having been convicted. You are now an ex-convict. If you are convicted, even if they say pay 1 naira fine, you are now an ex-convict. If you are convicted, for example, for an offense involving dishonesty, let's say in an election or any other time, you are disqualified from contesting elections. So that is the significance of making penal provisions. 500,000 for voter inducement for certain classes of people is significant. For what I might term the retailers, those who go to polling units and pay, many of them are the foot soldiers. For a multi-millionaire, a billionaire party leader, it may not be anything. And that is actually our challenge, is to go after the wholesalers, go after the people who bring out the money from the banks, not those who distribute it. There are several layers of distribution. So we're not going to go to the retailers, the people who are in the polling units. We should go for the source itself. 500,000 might not be much for them, but if you are able to apprehend those retailers, those people in the polling units who are distributing 30,000, 10,000, 15, or whatever it is, then if you don't get those soldiers doing it, then the big men will not have to come out and do these things themselves. But for them, it is the fact that there's a conviction and there are certain things you cannot do. There's a certain stigma that attaches to being an ex-convict. If you sue for libel, for example, you don't have a reputation. So even if I've libeled you, if I've defamed you, and ordinarily they might give you 100 million naira, they say, look, you have been defamed, but you have no reputation. You have no integrity because you're an ex-convict. They'll give you 1 naira, a symbolic peppercorn fine to say that, look, this is what the value in the eyes of society, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of people, of the public, this is what you are worth because you have no reputation. So that is a significant part of it. And the issue is, I think the challenge more is enforcing these provisions, challenging, getting people to face trial and convicting them.